Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I'm excited to bring my guest to you today. Mike Coy is a registered financial consultant and a certified professional behavioral analyst, a best-selling author, and highly sought-after public speaker. His 46 years in the insurance space working with Aflac makes him a unique and knowledgeable, sought-after voice. Mike is also a former high school basketball coach and summer select baseball coach with 3 Texas state championships and 1 national championship. Mike also coached the USA 16 international team for 5 years in Australia, winning the Down Under championship all 5 years. After winning 2 battling championships in the Texas-Louisiana Professional Baseball League in 1977 and 78, Mike was offered a minor league baseball contract with the New York Mets. There is so much more to talk about. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Lyndsay, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be with you. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, it is my pleasure. So we start every episode the same way. And my first question is, tell us your story.
Well, my dad was a high school football, baseball coach. My mother was an educator. My parents in 1952 started the first private school in Beaumont, Texas. My mom thought that the public schools was not offering the education that should be done, and that Coy's day school absolutely exploded. And so I came up in a family of educators. It's funny, my son, who's a tremendous athlete in high school and college, is now the head of schools in Austin, Texas, at a very prestigious private high school. And my daughter has 2 master's degrees and is the head counselor in Hutto, Texas, right outside of Austin. So I'm surrounded by educators. But growing up, it was all about school. It was all about sports. I was very fortunate to play on some very, very good teams and had some success. And I really I knew that I was finishing up my master's degree and I had to do my student teaching at Lamar University in Beaumont, Texas. And I knew that if I completed my student teaching, that I would be a coach. Mm-hmm. Well, at that time, teachers were only making about $800 a month. And
they still are.
And I just couldn't, I wanted to do more. And I decided to, the Mets offered me the contract. It was $425 a month and $6 a day meal money. And I had a pregnant wife at home. And it's
Lord.
Guys, this isn't going to cut it. Mm-mm. And so a good friend got me into the insurance business where I could work my own hours, where I didn't have a ceiling on my income. And I think more importantly, it gave me the opportunity to coach. And a friend of a friend got me involved with Amelia Little League, and I moved up with those boys to senior league and big league. And in 1986, I had a very special team that we ended up 3rd in the world. And at the time, the San Diego Padres AA team, their Texas League team, was in Beaumont. And I met a lot of the executives and the scouts. And one of the scouts told me, if you ever get to San Diego, look me up. We love the way that you work with your young hitters. Well, it happened about 10 months later. I got an opportunity to have my own insurance agency in San Diego. I moved to San Diego and became a roving hitting instructor. And I ran the San Diego School of Baseball. And so every day I would sell insurance from 8 o'clock in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon, go home and change clothes. And I would do hitting lessons from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock every night and all day on Saturday. And I just loved it. Miss Croc sold the team. They cut out my position. I moved after living in San Diego for 2 years, I couldn't move back to the Houston, Beaumont area. So I moved to Austin. And I've been involved in playing men's senior baseball. I'm 70 years old and I play on a 58 and over team here in Colorado Springs. And but I've coached all those, just some great athletes. And the insurance business has been very, very good to me because I've always wanted to help people. So my life was rolling right along, and then I had a continuous sore throat back in 2013. Went to the doctor, saw a specialist, and he walked in and said the three words you never want to hear, and that is, "You have cancer."
Yeah.
And I've never been sick a day in my life. I went through that, but I can tell you this, and my kids will tell you that my life is clearly defined as AC and BC, after cancer
Yeah.
and before cancer.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that my main mantra is that in 1997, I'd gone by to pick up my dad. My son was playing baseball at Austin Westlake, and he said, I'm not feeling good. I'm not going to make it today." And as I was walking out, he said, "Son, make a difference." And that's the last words he said to me, because 2 hours later he passed away.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I felt like that he was talking about me coaching and working with young people. But now that I've gotten older, I think there's a deeper meaning, and I feel like that's why I'm doing a great podcast like with you, and just trying to get my message out of mainly the name of my book, I chose Live, about making a difference. And
Well,
life is about choices. You either get busy living or get busy dying.
yep.
And
Well,
I wanna live.
let's unpack some of that, because that was a whole lot to talk about. So, first, I'm so glad that you survived the cancer. I definitely want to talk about the book, but I do want to talk about coaching, because I love having coaches. I love having athletes on my show, because I always feel like there's a process, a methodology, a spirit that a coach has to invite in their players that makes them want to perform. What is your methodology? What's the way that you get the best out of your players?
Well, I mean, number one is that if you have a team, and I've been very blessed that if they buy into you as a coach, if they believe in what you are doing, they understand that there is a end goal on why we're doing this drill, or why we are running like we run, or all of this, is that I feel like that if you can build that culture, and then it continues on. Because there was, when I was coaching this junior Cardinal football, the sixth and seventh grade football at Austin Junior High, we had a string of 5 years in a row where we lost one game. And you get a group of young men that come in, and they don't want to break the streak.
No.
They want to be a part of a winner. And my job, I felt like, is that I want you to be better tomorrow than you were today. And so that's kind of how I've lived my life. And it's also something that I really tried to get across to the young men that I've been able to coach.
Yeah, I think whenever you have a streak, people want to cling to that, and that that is so normal human behavior. You want to be on the winning side of things always. But when you're faced with pressure and challenges, I mean, those kids had to feel a fair amount of pressure. They're coming in and they don't want to be the reason that the streak ends. So, what do you do for the kids that are struggling? How did you bring out their confidence? How did you inspire them to find their greatness?
I think a lot of it had to do, and this is in life, is that you have to handle. In my case, I had to handle athletes in different ways. Uh, I was the kind of athlete that if you took me around the back of the dugout, you could beat me, hit me, scream at me. You could do anything you wanted to do, but I didn't like being brought out in front of the team. And so you have to figure that out about
Yeah.
your different athletes, because there are some athletes that you can scream, you can bring up what they just did was wrong in
Yeah.
front of everybody, and it challenges them to make them better. But you also have some that will go back in a shell. They don't want to be brought out in front of people. And so I think one of my biggest tasks was to really feel out each individual, because there was a lot of times that there would be a certain play, and I would walk out from the dugout and take that young man as he was coming off the field, and just kind of take him off to the side and say, why did you do this? Why did you throw this pitch? Or why did you make that play? And we just talked about it. And I felt like that my job was to coach them up. It's very easy to cut players
Yeah.
down. It's very easy to yell and scream. And I tried to be as positive and as encouraging. And I've had past athletes tell me that that I could be rough, but the one thing about it is that I was fair.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to hear.
I love that you brought that up because you hit on a few things that I think translate to leadership in business. And one is meeting people where they are. And not everybody wants the same things. Not everybody wants to be recognized out loud. Some people would prefer a quiet, check in the mail. Like some people don't want to see their name in lights. Some people, that's all they want. And understanding what your people need makes you a better leader. And the fact that you understood that clearly resonated with your teams because they performed so well. But I love that you ask them why, and you understand that building them up will always serve you better than cutting them down. I think the leaders that, the old school leadership of belittling and embarrassing and, do you know what you did? Like that doesn't motivate anyone. All it does is polarize them and it breaks trust. So I love that you talked about that because that is such a fundamental of what I believe. So let's talk a little bit about your book. Tell us what it's about. And I obviously know it was inspired by your cancer diagnosis, but share a little bit.
Well, again, I'd never been sick a day in my life. I had gone through a pretty devastating divorce. I got a phone call from the director of marketing at Aflac in home office saying, we need you to come here to be our director of education, of training, and recruiting for the state of Georgia. And so I had a couple of life experiences happen all at once. I moved. I just packed up and moved to Georgia. Didn't know a soul except my buddy that was in home office, and for 3 years I was the director of training and recruiting for the state of Georgia, and it was a tremendous opportunity for me. But then I got sick. I had this continuous sore throat. Went to the doctor. Doctor said, "Oh, it's a sinus infection. Don't worry about it." Gave me a bunch of antibiotics. About 6 weeks later, I went back. And she said, it's a bad sinus infection. Now you have to understand, Lyndsay, I had a tumor the size of your fist at the base of my tongue. And I was told that I had a sinus infection. And all the antibiotics did was destroy my immune system.
Yep.
And on July 4th weekend in 2013, I went into the bathroom and one of my lymph nodes had popped out like a golf ball.
Oh, Lord.
And I said, well, that's not good. And so I fought my way in to see the specialist. They did 5 needle biopsies. Now, if you've never had a needle biopsy,
I know
that'll wake you up in the morning.
It sure will.
And the doctor said, look, I'm not worried about you. It's just, it could be a sinus infection. We'll call you in a couple of weeks. Well, I had moved from Atlanta, that Atlanta area, to Chattanooga, Tennessee, to take over a district actually in Dalton, Georgia. But I lived across the border because Tennessee didn't have a state income tax. So I lived in a condo in Tennessee. And I hadn't even made it back to Tennessee before I got a phone call saying the doctor wants to see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. So I drove back to Atlanta. And that's when he walked in and said, you have cancer. And so I immediately started chemo, 7 days in the hospital. I was off for 2 weeks, 7 days in the hospital, and then 12 outpatient. I had my port installed and had all that going, and I had 35 radiation treatments. And if anybody, and I know a lot of folks in your audience have experienced the chemo and the radiation, and you have good days and you have some days that are pretty tough. And I remember one day I went out on the balcony in Tennessee. It was a gorgeous summer afternoon. The wind was blowing. I was looking at the Chattanooga River, and I felt something fall on my arm. And I looked down, and there was this big clump of hair that had fallen on my arm. And I looked around, and hair was going everywhere. I put my fingers through my hair, and every hair on my head
Just fell
fell
out.
out. And the reality hits you that, man, uh, either this chemo's working or it's not.
Yeah.
And I remember going in, I sat down, I turned on the TV, and there was the movie Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, great movie.
And there's a scene where Tim Robbins is talking about how horrible Shawshank Prison is, and he's talking to Morgan Freeman, who was this character Red, who had been there for 40 years.
Yeah.
And he said, "How could you stand it?" And Morgan Freeman said, "Life is about choices. You either get busy living or you get busy dying." And Lyndsay, I promise you, I turned off the TV. I
Mm.
got up, I went over to my desk, and I wrote my book. I chose live.
Oh, I love that. And I love that quote and I love that movie. And yeah, we've had a number of cancer survivors on the show, and I certainly have had a number in my life. And I find that the ones who take it on with the best attitude have the best odds. And I think the ones that choose to live are the ones that conquer it the best. And so,
As well as I
bravo.
do, you need to have a
Are
purpose.
you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together.
You know, I mean, I had people ask me, "Did you ever think about giving up?" Because I ended up losing over 70 pounds. The doctor said, if you get below 160, we're going to put a feeding tube in. Well, I used to go and weigh, and I'd have boots
Yep.
and a heavy jacket and all this just so I could weigh 160 pounds. But, you know, when you start going through this, I mean, for me, I tell people I never thought about giving up because I had a 6-month-old grandson that didn't know me, and I had not walked my daughter down the aisle yet.
Yeah.
And now I have 3 grandsons that probably wish they didn't know me. And my daughter, I did walk her down the aisle, and she's blessed me with a 4-year-old granddaughter. So, you know, I think a lot of times that people, that's where the depression comes in. That's
Yeah.
where a lot of things of that life, and I say in the book, and of course it's baseball related, but life's going to throw you a curveball.
Sure.
And it depends on how you approach it, how you depend on it. But for me, it was about this sense of purpose that I was going to fight this. And as an athlete, my oncologist told me, he goes, "This is going to be a breeze for you because you are disciplined. You do understand about adversity." And he said, "You're going to get through this a lot easier than a lot of other folks." And I guess I did.
Yeah. I was just I saw my mother-in-law this past weekend, and she was diagnosed with lung cancer. It was stage 4. It had moved to her brain and her adrenals over the course of a number of years, and she beat all of it. And she just went
Wow.
in for her annual scan, and they said she's cancer-free again. And they said that her odds of beating it were very, very low. But I attribute that wholly to her attitude. And she never said, "Why me?" She never said, "This is getting the best of me." She refused to be taken down, and she maintained a positive attitude every single day. And I really do believe that's what kept her here and keeps her going. But it's incredible when you can choose to live that way. And I love that you figured that out.
Well, you know, my main quest is in writing the book is that number one, stress is the silent killer. That's
Mm,
number one. Number two is that men don't get checked. We don't go to the
true.
doctor. And so our death rate is 58% higher than women because we wait
Mm,
until you can't wait any longer. And then it's stage 4, and our average life expectancy is 3 to 6 months. I mean, think about the great Toby Keith.
yep.
Toby Keith thought that he had indigestion. He thought he had an ulcer, and he's got a tumor the size of a grapefruit in his stomach. And 6 months later, he's gone. And there again, it drives me when I do my talks and I'm a keynote speaker and such, is that I ask the women folk out there, I said, you got to get your men checked. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got to get our colonoscopies. We've got to get our prostate checked. We've got to have these blood tests and stuff like this, because otherwise it can be tough.
Well, and I think people have to recognize they are responsible for their health. And you had this ongoing sinus infection, which it wasn't. And I had a similar medical issue. I had debilitating asthma that got worse and worse and worse. I was misdiagnosed and ended up in a coma and died. And luckily, I'm still here to tell the tale, but I was seeing the wrong doctors. I wasn't getting diagnosed properly. You have to listen to that gut. You have to say to yourself, I'm not getting the answers that I think I should be getting. I've got to keep pushing. I've got to find the right doctor who's going to take it seriously and run the right tests. Because I promise you, that first doctor that said it was a sinus infection, had she done a few more tests, it wouldn't have taken so long. But regardless, everybody needs to be their own advocate. So switching gears a little bit, what inspires you?
Right now it's about really about helping people. I mean, this is something that when I went into the insurance industry, I knew that I could do, but I am living life. I mean, my wife Elizabeth and I moved to Colorado Springs 4 years ago. We left Austin to get out of the heat and humidity and traffic. And Aflac gave me an opportunity in Colorado Springs, and I am playing this men's senior baseball. I'm working full time. Next Tuesday, I'm going to go to Monarch Mountain and ski that afternoon. The next morning, I mean, I am looking at this, that I got another shot at life, and I'm really trying to live it to the fullest, and like I said, help as many people as I can, but just enjoy life.
Good, good. I love that. And what's next for Mike?
Well, I'm really looking at doing more of the speaking gigs, getting out there, just telling my story, trying to reach more and more people. I had a friend of mine that was a third baseman in men's senior. I was on third base. This is about 5 or 6 years ago in Austin. And he said, "Hey, Coy, my wife made me read your book, and I went and had a colonoscopy, and they found five precancerous polyps that they
Oh,
removed." And he said, "You saved my life." And I said, "Benny, you saved your life because it's the act of doing.
yeah.
You went and got checked, got it figured out, and got something done." And so if I'm able to make a difference, if I'm able to live what my father said to me in his last words, then hopefully that'll make a difference, and I can make a difference.
Oh, I love it. That's so good. What would you like your legacy to be?
I would just like that he lived life to the fullest. He loved people, and he tried to be the best that he could be.
And you are doing all of that. Mike, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Where can people find you?
It's at ichoselive.com.
Easy.
ichoselive.com. And I also want to make sure that they know that they can go to mikecoyspeaks.com/gift. mikecoyspeaks.com/gift. I've got Mike's 10 tips on how to prevent cancer, but I also have chapter 8 in I Chose Live that I think is a powerful, powerful chapter. And I talk about how Mother Teresa said that God only gives you what you can handle. I just wish he didn't trust me so much. And this is again about at just grasping life, saying today's the best day of my life. I'm going to seize this opportunity. I'm going to grasp this day. And I hope people make the same choice that I made. And that is, I chose live.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I hope people get that too, because everyone has choices. And if you choose to make every day a great day, you're going to be doing something right. So, Mike, it
Yeah.
was a pleasure. Thank you for being a great guest. And everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. Take care of each other. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or consider leaving a 5-star review and a great rating at Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.